All right, I would like to call the February 6th, 2023 school committee meeting to order at 6:01. Be a roll call vote. Barkowski. Yes. Long.
Yes.
Gates.
Yeah.
Lindblom.
Yes.
Randallini, yes. The Situate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to those standards to support and respect our community. Public comment will be available by Zoom as well as in person, and community members can also email me at nbrandolini@sit.org. All right, so FY24 budget public hearing discussion. I'll open it up to the committee if anyone has any comments, or Superintendent Burkett or Dr. Dutch, you have anything you want to start with? Or are we going through everything just like Saturday again?
Yep.
Okay,
Different version.
great.
It's always not to bore you. when-
No, but this is riveting.
Thank you.
Sure. And yes. Do it again.
Good evening. Hear me?
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. We are excited here tonight to share the FY24 budget recommendations and draft. At the workshop on Saturday, and our goal tonight is to provide the same budget overview with a different perspective, and also take the feedback we received Saturday, and we're able to incorporate some of those pointers and advice from the committee to our presentation. Well, some of this will be review, and some of it will be new, but all the members of it. So the foundation of our budget is a reflection of our values, also reflects stewardship and responsibility of the town's money in a responsible and transparent way. And we believe that this budget, and for years I've been here, is one of the most exciting because it just really reflects a lot of great things for our kids. That's ultimately what this money should transfer over to, is spending on a great education for our children and a wonderful experience for our families and all of that work in the town and for our schools. So the two pillars we've in the cornerstones of our work are cultural collaboration and of excellence. And just a quick summary of the cultural collaboration. It's what it says. It's working together as a group with partners inside and outside of the schools, so professionally and respectfully, and building trust. And these are some of the highlights under the pillar of collaboration that we're proud of, reflected in this year's budget. And it's a commitment to facilities. And this basically keeps the line item that we do have in facilities of $250,000 that started 2 years ago, 125, since doubled this fiscal year. And I'm requesting that it stay in this year's budget. So commitment to that. And just wanted to give an example of what some of that money is spent on, that folks can understand. Besides the obvious of fixing things that break, especially in this cold weather, HVAC, things like that. You don't have to go to town for money. We have that in our budget. The Kobe Cutler Center is being worked on right now as we speak at the center. We look forward to doing some positive communications on the transformation of that for our students. The accessibility of the Walker Cup playground. We made some positive changes to that playground upgrades to make it more accessible for all our children. We're going at Walker Cup Library. It's beautiful, just basically transferring form place with that. It's something new this year, landscaping at all buildings, which we want to keep in moving forward. We have something the kids can be proud of, come back to school with all of their staff. We have a painting of the high school right out front, from green to blue. And so on. So that's good. We want to keep, and then also the last one is teamwork with bargaining units. When you try to build a culture of collaboration, respect, and trust, negotiations are a great way to do that. We look at them as a positive thing. We have 6 going on, and we'll wrap it up on our last one now. And just really positive interactions. I want to thank all the bargaining units, the members, and those folks that volunteered a lot of time to be on those committees and that hard work. But at the core of all that work was building language in their contracts that supports student learning, and that can be agreed upon with the group. So, I want to thank the committee members that volunteered along the way for all this community as well. And the culture of excellence, which you'll see reflected in this budget, is 113% investment in our curriculum, and we'll talk a little bit about details of that. But basically, it's bring back to student learning and support for our staff to do that, whether it's textbooks, resources, benchmarking, example, literacy benchmarking that we're implementing at the middle and high school. Those are all part of that investment in curriculum and student learning. Increased staffing, an obvious one, has direct impact on students. Tonight we've added some slides that you'll see that get into some more details about enrollment. Just in general, we want to get something new this year that we want to start just keeping an eye on and make sure the community is aware of, as well as the committee, and visual idea of how we kind of pay attention to that, where we strategically add staff, and we'll do that every year, understanding that student enrollment is flexible and maybe it may change. I want the community to also know that these increases or staffing need arises where children are impacted, we'll address it. And increased support for social emotional learning reflected in here as well, with the transportation commitment to Independence Academy for our students at the high school who may struggle with social emotional or substance issues, and the new 1.0 board certified behavioral analyst that will help our other 2 PCBAs in the district service more students directly. I think that's a huge win. And then staff support with our new coaching model that's be determined, but will be innovative and something no one is so sure. The last one is just increase in support for cybersecurity. So it's obviously a huge one that we want our information to be protected, and we've done so, I think, very strongly with this budget. So this was a recommendation, thank you, Dr. Kowski, to just kind of make things simple with it, where the staffing needs are right now and additions. And we'll may point these out as we go through, but just a clear 4.8 add overall. And you'll see the BCBA. I spoke about that. And right now that's presented through 0.5 at Gates, 0.5 high school. The other 2 BCBA full-time with the elementaries, and allow for much better service and more student to staff ratio, lower number. The reading specialist at Gates will be a 0.5 added to a current 0.5 position to make that whole. Have that person there all day, year round, which is wonderful. Special education teachers at Cushing. Besides looking at enrollment, we look at every individual student and their service needs and their IEPs, and make staffing calls accordingly. And the grade 1 teachers at Cushing and Wampatuck are saying the same thing, looking at class sizes and trying to keep those as long as you can, especially in the K-3 grades. That's where those impacts are. Elementary music it seems like a small ad, but it's a huge impact on our ability to schedule our staff so they can support more children and after school activities. We're proud of that. And the 0.1 at Hadley, again, seems like a small addition, but it's a profound one, because that staff member can now go 4 days, 4 days a week, all day, instead of 4 days a week, even having the early weird 0.75 number. So that's the summary of those staff members. And tonight, what we decided is, because a lot of this was review, we'll just keep going through it. If you have a question, I'll Bob and I and Heidi are trying to follow together each slide. Read the road now. So the process, first of all, I'd like to thank a lot of people, but you know, anybody on the forecast committee, financial forecast committee, thank you for your time and working with the town and that collaboration. I want to thank our teachers and educators and building principals for the hard legwork that starts from the ground up, developing a budget on what the needs are of the staff. And I pointed this out Saturday. Our principals did a really good job of soliciting that information, working with their staffs and getting us very responsible budgets that we can support so that all teachers' needs are met. Also like to thank the department chairs and coordinators for all their hard work collaborating this year K through 12, which was awesome, and with our principal. And that partnership has done really good work along with working with Miss Briscoe at the central office. So that information comes up and we review it. We look at the revenue available for the financial forecast. Numbers become real. We meet with principals, department chairs, and district administrators. We're all meeting at the same time. And then we get our numbers. We share that draft with the subcommittee of school committee. So, and thank you to Mr. Gates for being on that committee. Budget workshop was Saturday. Tonight we're at the public hearing. Tomorrow, show moves over to the town building for the select board meeting at 7:30. If our community would like to be present for that, we will be there. And the other town presentations, the advisory committee meeting, which will be at next Thursday evening, I believe. Then town meeting follows well. The school committee obviously approved the budget that we had February 13th meeting.
So the snapshots that you see here are the same that were there on Saturday, so there's no change for these. So I'll just gloss over that. And the same is true with the comparisons for FY23 and FY24. And again, I draw your attention to the increased percentage going to facilities and operations. Something new for tonight, so you can keep you engaged. A little detail on enrollment. I'll let Superintendent Burkett speak to that.
It can make it a little bigger. For those in the audience that eyes aren't as good as I used to, including myself. Thank you. So there we go. See this one. So a 3-year spread, usually trends of data, or, we like to look at least 3 years and minimum, but we want this to start, for people to see, and this is your first look at this tonight, so digest this, and a lot of these slides might be your first. And our goal this year was to listen to the feedback and include more information that's relevant. Just some things to look at is in 2000, we talk about enrollment numbers, we'll get to where the state's at, where the local communities at, where we're at, like that. And one thing you need to know is the class sizes are getting smaller overall, class size overall enrollment. If you look at school year 2020-21, for example, the junior and senior classes, respectively, were 260 and 252 students. We're not even close to that anywhere else. Those two graduated and right away we're at a net loss of 92 students because the 8th grade's filling them up for 211. The 9th grade there. So right away you're losing students there, and so some of that's just attrition. So that's when you see those numbers, that's the biggest hit. And then other numbers we look at are transition years going into 6th grade, going into 9th grade. We typically lose some students to vocational schools, potentially private schools. And I want to commend our team for doing exit interviews on all those students. We shared that last year. That the good news is some kids were transitioning out in those years from our district. The reasons also very rational, and any feedback that we got to improve so that we can keep as many students here we're working on. So that's the enrollment slide in the big picture. Right. And we thought we'd compare this with our surrounding towns, that folks typically like to see. And if you see at the top, we include the last 3 years, then we've got 3-year data kind of summarized. And then from DESI, you can go and check this out 5-year and 10-year. Well, we went out 10 years, as you can see. I'll start with that. On the far right, 2015, 5-year change enrollment, and also the 2010 10-year look. Those are just numbers, so it depends on the size of the school, but you can see there's a lot of negatives up there. So on the South Shore, particularly where we're living and working, those numbers have been going down for 10 years. So it's not necessarily a pandemic thing or a COVID thing. It's one of the numbers to tell that story. Although, I think a decrease, if it can be avoided, is not just demographic, it's certainly something we look at closely. So I wanted folks to see that, and just be clear with the numbers. Then we broke it down by the 3-year range. In the last 3 years, 218, we met negative 218. Again, some of that I showed you was 2 giant classes with 92 kids, and some of that's other things, but things we're looking at. So if you look at the percentages, hands at the top in the last 3 years, we're almost 11% of kids were somewhere in the middle. But it's also good to study those other schools like Norwell, maybe that are smaller, but are losing a smaller percentage to see what things they're doing well. So it's also 92 mark. And the bottom one is high school only. This is the percentage, a little bit more breakdown. English learners, low income students, and these slides are also in more detail coming up. See where a lot of similarities in those numbers. Sure. Which break these disabilities over the last 3 years percentage wise. See a slight trend upward. I think just about everything. So, question has been asked: COVID pandemic, what's happening with your disability numbers and students on IEPs, and they've increased slightly. And it's also good to say just give you one number we wanted to look at what's happening around the social, especially the schools that we're typically compared to other ones. So, yep.
And that can also, I think it's important. That can also be an option of like diagnostic is getting better, right?
Yeah.
So that feels.
Agreed, and that's why we want to start keeping that slide and making the 5 years
Yeah.
and using that, because we don't have just hypothetical right now. Going on. But it is trending everywhere. So English language learners, small population in this area, slight increase for us in this year. And the income category, which really top 3, I think. Might shock some people. Yeah, third. Marshfield and let's see, Pembroke, then Marshfield, and then Situate. And that number's been around the same, around the flow. So again, well, it's budget time. We also wanted to, show some comparisons in our, MCAS and other indicators that are part of our goal this year is to look at percentile ranking and all this gets considered. Would be a good opportunity to switch hand in hand with enrollment in your district. So there's the ELA and math scores for MCAS, the growth scores for ELA and math. Areas of strengths and areas that we can grow on. But as chairs, the community is that we can always get better, but we're always looking at ourselves to get better first, but we are keeping an eye around surrounding schools. Other indicators, the dropout rate, 5-year graduation. And if I want to mention too, this cluster of schools are really highly successful, high performing schools. So it's also going to be in that category to say, oh, well, gee, we're second to last, we're in the middle of the pack on this. We gotta put in perspective that this is a high caliber group, and that's where we want to be, and we want to be the best of this group. So again, these are part of our goals to improve on, and those things that we're doing really good on. Unless we're all 100%, we want to do that.
So I'm gonna just speak to these are the financials, again, of similar types of communities. Try to get that a little bigger. What you have on the top is the enrollment. These are foundation enrollments, which is why the numbers look a little different than the enrollment you saw on the other page. It includes anybody who lives in Situate that may go to school elsewhere. But the key takeaway here is to take a look at the expenditure per in-district pupil. You can see over time that number's gone up as it should, if their spending has gone up. We are near the top. Again, we're at $16,400 per pupil. Duxbury's higher. Everyone else is a little bit lower than we are. And if you look at the state average for 2021, we are below $2,000 below the state average. Keeping in mind that the urban centers spend a lot on education. I think that's good as well. Because the bulk of our budget goes to salaries, we wanted you to see what you were getting for that as a comparison to these other three communities. And you can see that in total, the number of teachers is somewhat irrelevant. But when you look at student to teacher ratio, all students to all teachers, you can see that right now we're 11.8 students for every one teacher. And that is lower than any of the other three communities that we're compared to. And you'll see similar numbers for these other categories. And again, there's a lot of information here, and this is the first you're seeing it. But if as you look at this, it prompts a question, please reach out. Maybe a question particularly as it relates to students with disabilities or Dr. Bowman. So we direct you there.
Just add to that too. Again, this slide, there's a lot of information. I think from almost every category, we're one of the lowest. These are the high performing schools. So that's something we're really proud of in adding staff. I thought this was a real document that show folks that the community should be aware of that we are using our resources wisely to the foremost of people in front of our students.
Well, and we focus on class size and we say it on a regular basis, and this is an indicator of that, making sure that we have a sufficient number of staff for the student population.
No, I was just gonna say, I know super duper, and that Saturday. This, I'm assuming, your adjustment functions don't fall under your special educators. But our ratio in the psychologists and adjustment functions, I know are better than some of these.
No, those are not in the.
That's based on the continue, they're adding, they know that our numbers are some of the best in the state of ratio for counselors and school second.
That's a good question. Superintendent, on enrollment, is that ninth grade correct? Is it 158? Is that being correctly? Ninth grade enrollment? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
That's accurate.
158.
Okay, so now we're going to start to look at the numbers, where the numbers are not any different. I won't speak too much to them, but they are represented differently. You got a very detailed look on Saturday. Today, you're getting a kind of a look from a little further, a little more treetop view. So it'll be a little bit different, and I'll explain where necessary. So the first line item, the school committee, this is the same as what you saw on Saturday, so there's no need for any explanation. You see the number for school committee conference travel, and we talked about that. Superintendent's office, again, similarly, same position, same line items that we saw in the main budget within in the central office category when we presented the other day. And if you have a question on any of these, please stop me. I'll be happy to provide. Curriculum. So this comes partially from the curriculum category that you saw. I think the big thing that jumps out is curriculum development revision. And that's where you see the big change, and that is all of the materials that we're buying related to curriculum development. The revision of our curriculum, whether that's staff or materials, that all falls into that category. Business and HR, again, you've seen these three categories, and they are exactly what they were in the Saturday presentation. Information technology, again, similar. You see the large increase in contract services. That's our software agreements with management for Google Suite and whatnot. Curriculum and building leadership. So you've got department chairs here, your administration, principals, assistant principals, and everything that falls in their line item. So this is a little different look than what you saw before. Previously, you saw it by school. Here, it's all aggregated across all of the schools and combined into the reporting categories that the state utilizes. I don't know if anybody has a question there, because that's the way it's represented. Yes.
It's like for contract services, it's down 30,000, and next year we're expecting like 120,000 decrease. Is that just due to contracts coming up, or is that something else?
The FY proposed is up 120,000.
I'm sorry, okay.
So this was what was adopted last year, the 85. And this year, we're proposing the 203.
So that means like if we look for even maybe that's correct.
Correct. It's the safety and the cybersecurity, all of that is in there.
I think that's cybersecurity. Oh, 100,000,
Pretty close to that.
that's something that's never been on our budget. I would commit it to them, that would be in there. No,
That's what I thought it was. But yeah.
Instruction, again, this is a little bit different look because we're aggregating all of the teachers. The general ed teachers, substitute teachers are here, which you saw that line item, and then library salaries. So you can see what's happening there as a percentage. The teacher specialist difference is purely retirement versus somebody new coming in one of those areas. Textbooks, again, you saw it in each school. Now you're seeing it aggregated. And then you see the increase of 151% in science, as was described. Everything else has kind of been explained to you already. Supplies, again, by department. All of this you saw at the school level, now you're seeing it here. This falls within supplies as well, so these are memberships for things like music membership, to participate in the different festivals. Virtual high school falls into a supply line as well, so you can see that. Special education, again, similarly, these were in the schools. Now you're seeing them in total, all special ed teachers, all paraprofessionals. And then you've got the district staff and psychological salary all in one place. Special ed expenses, this is exactly what you saw on Saturday. You can see the amounts that have been proposed for FY24. What I do want to draw your attention to, and I probably should have done this for all of these, is if you look at the FY20, you have FY21 actuals, and you have the FY22 actuals, and I'll draw attention to the private school tuition. The actual for FY22 is more than the adopted amount for FY23. You might ask the question why. Well, this is what we actually spent that particular year. And part of that is because we take circuit breaker from the previous year and prepay, but from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, it shows up as an expense in the year you pay for it, not in the year you incur the cost. So that's why you're seeing some differences in some of these line items. If we prepay something, it causes that line item to be a little bit higher than what we might have expected it to be. Any questions there? Student services. It's your guidance, school nurse, and our school resource officer, and that's what you saw on Saturday at the school level, but now. Like that. Athletics, exactly what you saw on Saturday. Student activities. These are the clubs that happen at the elementary, middle, and high school. The bulk of this are the stipends for the advisors. Transportation, again, no change from what you saw on Saturday. Facilities, again, these are all the same as when we had the central office listing. This is now broken out by facilities by itself. So that brings us to the total budget. And these are the details that you saw. Lindblom, I've corrected this page so that you can see in IT. Supplies are now 215,000 instead of 213,000. At least they knew where the $2,000. So your total, and again, revenue. And I want to go into a little bit of detail on the revenue, because again, that's a little bit different. So these are your grants at the top. You take a look at the FY22 actuals versus the FY23 budgeted. When we budgeted these amounts, we didn't know what the actuals were going to be. We anticipated about $85,000 of revenue for Title I. We actually got $118,000. So we then in FY23 budgeted the 116, seeing that we got 118. And 116 is actually, excuse me, what we've gotten this year is the 116, so that's what we budgeted for FY24. So that's true for each of these. The significant difference is you'll see in circuit breaker. Didn't know when we built the budget for FY23 that we'd be getting 1.6 million. So that's how we were able to prepay a lot of the FY22 monies. Bills. You see that for FY23, excuse me, for FY24, we budgeted the 1.6 million, knowing that that's likely what we will get. Just for this year, we know we're getting 1.6 million. Is why we budgeted that amount after seeing it in FY22. Tuition. These are, again, varied from year to year. You can see we've to this point gotten $163,000 for non-resident tuition. We proposed 175. You know, we budgeted 214, so we haven't hit that budgeted amount. But the year before, we hit 321. If this 163 represents half, because we're halfway through the year, and we've gotten 2 of the 4 payments, we very well might hit the 321 as a number, but don't want to budget for that without being certain that that's where we'll be. This is revenue. This doesn't have to be spent on any given year. It's a reserve account. So the money can sit there and accrue for when we may need it, offset some other costs down the road. So that's true with athletic fees. So each of these accounts also has a balance account aside from, so that's not included in any of that.
What about outside rooms that maybe you wanted to rent from cab? Would that fit into this equation?
In theory, it would, but we don't have a line item here. It's within units on the town side. So and most of the revenue that comes in through the PAC goes to pay either the custodian who has to be there or the technical support, with some technical support for lighting or sound. It's needed. There is a small building use component as well, which doesn't relate to those payments. And that would go into that account. We use that to offset the cost of repairs and maintenance to that facility.
We have data on, do a lot of those things. Rent.
We have data, there haven't been a lot until more recently. It's starting to be used more. The challenge is that schools have first option and they're using it quite a bit. So there isn't a lot of opportunity for outside groups to get in. Okay?
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you that summary, and you'll see the revenue 48,936, 522 is the same as their expense. That's everything. I don't know if you have questions. Again, as I said, if you review this and then you have questions, please do that.
Oh, I didn't either, so I wasn't sure. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, it's working, right? You guys can hear me? Yeah, so I had one comment and one question. The comment would be for community members and parents who watch this video later. I would strongly recommend that they also watch Saturday, because it's so nice to see if you have questions, right? Because I know oftentimes there's worry about transparency, and it's very transparent if you go back and watch Saturday. So just as a reminder to folks, if they turn this on first.
Additionally, just so folks are aware, after tomorrow night, we'll post this presentation
Oh,
on
great.
Saturday's PDF to the business page.
Great. Yeah, I love being able to see it sliced in a different way. So this presentation was really helpful to see that. So thank you. Just a quick question. In one of the opening slides, you sort of gave us the overview of the increases in curriculum, staffing, cybersecurity. And there's a note about additional support for SEL. I just want to confirm, is that coming through mostly in staff, or is it sort of sprinkled across the whole budget? Just wondering.
It's sprinkled across the budget. It's the BCBA.
Yep.
Specifically, it's the transportation
Okay.
for Independent Academy, as a couple of examples. K-12 curriculum. is
Okay, that's
also-
what, okay, okay, just, I know someone will ask about that, so I want to know. Yeah.
I have, I guess maybe one or two questions. First of all, just on this, on the, special ed out of district, obviously that increases the proposed 14% increase.
Which is 440,000.
Yep. On the collaborative, so the collaborative tuition is under a different arrangement than the private out of school tuition. And has there been Does it go through the same process relative to the increase in tuitions?
No, the increase in tuition is voted by the superintendents who sit on the board of the collaboratives. Historically, it's been in the 2 to 3% range. I don't know if that's been voted yet. Superintendent?
No, it's not officially the governor's budget, but it's for all intents and purposes, that's, it will be. We heard nothing to make us believe that the number will go down, although there's still a lot of advocacy. Either decreasing that number or spreading it out over 3 or 4 years. The other piece of advocacy that out there is to increase the circuit breaker from 75 to 85% to get more money back to offset that. And we've been fortunate that number is 400,000. It's significant, fortunately, for all districts, and a little bit of luck with some graduates and students coming out costs, but also some great work by Dr. Bober and our special education team. We're just keeping more students here and providing more services that we don't have to pay well for us. And I think that's been a huge commitment for Dr. Bober when we got here. Probably see that, some of the numbers that they've gone down. So we were able to absorb that $400,000. Think about that. If we weren't able to do that, those new teaching positions that we're adding would need.
Yes, so that's relative to the private school increase, so the collaborative, I just noticed, it's great, and I think I know the story, but I just want to confirm it, that we're reducing it by $250,000.
Correct.
So we're, obviously, some kids are coming back
We've
that
had-
were
yeah,
there, and
Some
then,
coming back, some aging out.
Yep.
Potentially.
well, we don't anticipate a potential 14% increase in collaborative tuition.
Definitely not,
Okay.
because it's not controlled by the state, that's controlled by the superintendents
Okay.
that are on the board.
Okay. And back to my enrollment question, sorry to bring it up, but I was surprised to see 158 in 9th grade. And I know that we did the, I think Ms. Rundle gave the presentation on our survey of students enrolling elsewhere. What was the, do we know what the 8th grade class was that turned into 158 in 9th grade? Was there a large number of students? 192? It's the second one. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't read it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab it. for you. Yep, 190. 192.
Okay, and we picked up most of those people in the survey that we did.
Stage of the survey, the counselors reached out to everyone who left between February of last year and the beginning of the year. So we didn't go back several years. So it was from February to the beginning of this year, so October 1st. So we didn't go back to the store.
But, all right. So,
This year's freshman class.
yeah, so it looks like the current 9th graders were 8th grade, right? So there was 192, so we went from 192 to 158. So I think it's a pretty significant drop in number. So were those surveyed, those students?
Everyone who left between the times.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if you look at 2021, 2022, it's a similar drop. So it's a smaller number, but the one for paper increase.
That's also, they're going to 9th grade, correct? So they're going
Going
to the go tech.
Could be about that, could be Legacy High School.
I'm just saying, class size in general is smaller, but the change in class size from 8 to 9 year over year actually isn't that much there. So it's like, right, it's one- well, because it's lower.
I think it is certainly something we're, concerned about. It was 19 the year before us during the war. That's why we put it here, because we want to keep an eye on that. We want to make sure that doesn't become 54. Things like that. So I think that's a good observation. It's something we're looking at, and that's why we included the exit interviews and finding out, okay, it's just a big year for it. But we also have an increase in vocation, student go to vocational schools. I think that's why we're looking at our pathways. To meet the needs of those kids. I don't see it any different than adjusting what we do to support, keep students that are leading for special education needs. As for those that are leading for vocation needs and other needs. Okay, what can we do differently here to keep them? So we're working on that. Those, you know, the other thing we talked about this today, actually, we don't have the data from us from the 3 years before that. My experience, high school principal, that typically every school loses some kind of number off the 8th and 9th grade. We have to be careful that the number doesn't continue to increase, and that we know where those kids are going and why. And
I just have a quick question about, I know you explained this more on Saturday, and my brain is frozen a little maybe, but, so, you did explain it more, but, the elementary music position, the 0.2 at Wampatuck. So what does that look like across the 4 schools now? Do they all have 1.0, or is our staff traveling around still?
we told to be 2.8, 2.6, 2.8.
Okay. Two point eight total.
But it'll make it a 0.8.
So that 0.6, 0.8.
Okay.
The rationale was another section, a couple more classes, but also the time for after school activities with the cut performances, things like that, that make an addition. That was this time will help to make more of those things happen and be equitable. Then we talked a little bit, I'll let on this back. Even though we put that at Wampatuck, when we do our scheduling, promise we'll sit down with principals, any staff we share. Every year, we look at a fresh set of eyes, saying, okay, how can we best meet the needs of the students based on the positions we have? Now that we've added this point, too, there's more flexibility, and hopefully less travel between schools.
If anybody wants to refer, to the school committee summary from earlier this year, according to the actual withdrawal reports, 36% of the students moved out of city. 30% went to parochial schools. 13% went to private schools, 2% went to alternative schools, 19% went to public vocational schools. That's all of the students. And out of the respondents, 69% of the people who moved from these responded to this survey.
I remember that survey being very benign and positive for the district. I just didn't realize the actual number of 9th graders. I probably just missed it, but I wasn't aware. But as you said, you're going to work at the last graduating class was like 270, 270-ish.
266.
Yeah, so it's a difference of 100 students right there.
Yeah, and something that, these numbers are fascinating. I think just having that, we didn't have that last year. Now we can just easily get it and get it right. That we can even bring this up that people move out, but also people move in. And I'd like you to check out the kindergarten numbers, for example.
Yeah.
From 2021, there were 182. And 21-22, that went up to 193, 11 more. Then it jumped to 235 this year. There's 42 from last year, this year, 42 more kindergartners, and there's 34 less 9th graders, so it balances out a little bit. So as long as we're comfortable saying, okay, people moved out, it wasn't, and even, you're right, those people that moved out had a positive experience here, but for personal reasons and other reasons, they left. They didn't leave because of the schools here. Those, that's good information to have. Otherwise, people draw assumptions.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to do that. You can know about it.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you providing not only the data, but also appropriate context to why, what drives these things. to keep an eye on. So it is important. Thank you. Janice, anything from you?
I'll just comment on how nice the condensed version was, and but it still remains transparent. So thank you, Dr. Dutch and Superintendent Burkhead for that.
Wrong.
One question on the transportation side, so the lease went up 54,000 from last time, and that was just an increase in the cost of the overall lease, correct?
Yes. And that it's the cost of the new buses.
And is the town still on board with continuing to have us lease year over year for any conversations with the PTA?
They seem to prefer that as an option. The cost, part of the challenge is that you've got 19 buses all at once, 18 buses all at once. You could phase in your purchases and buy 4 a year on a 5-year cycle. There's certainly some advantage to the town to own them. They get depreciation on the tax basis. So there are some benefits for them. The downside is they own them, and they own all the headaches that come with it after the 3 or 5 years. That we don't currently have. Their way to give them back. So at least these are 5-year leases, so there's 4 more years, so at least for that foreseeable future, we're gonna be leasing.
And so the cost of the lease year over year is 304.
Yep, that's a fixed cost for those 5 years.
And do we see that as a cost that's continuing to go up by where we're leasing from, or is it?
No, it's a cost related to the cost of buses. When you leased last time, a bus was $88,000, and now they're 99.
So just the cost of the bus, it's
Just
not
the cost of the bus.
price on.
No, the cost of the lease, the interest rate that we're paying, is pretty consistent from the lease to lease.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? All right, that's all. We can move to public comment. No in-person participants. Oh, I see one hand raised.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just quick question. I apologize if I missed this. Is there a slide that tells us the percentage, like the total budget, and it gives us a pie graph of each percentage for like athletics, supplies, teachers, everything? Did I miss that?
There, try to answer your question. There is one, and I will put it up.
Can you state your name, Mr. Westor, please?
Oh, sorry, Mike Westort, 44 Amy's Way, Situate.
I was kind of just kidding. But thank you.
You can find it. So it's on this slide. You can see the expenditures by percent for the different categories. And then the one next to it is the cost, the increases in each category, 5% as well. So where the additional monies are going for this particular year.
Oh, sorry, I guess I was on mute. If we can get a copy of this after tomorrow?
Yes, it'll be posted to the business page on the Citrus Schools website.
Okay, and the expenditures by percentage includes the cost increase, or that's in addition to that?
The expenditures by percentage includes the cost increase, and then we break it out by.
Okay,
Increase.
perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, one of the projects, can we make the color consistent with the front of the slides? It's especially on the next one, the large part of the orange, and then it goes to blue, and the orange is small. And the first time I looked at it, I was like, how did salary drop 60%?
Somebody better than me may be able to. I tried.
I'm just thinking for people like Mr. Westgord and the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna see all colors first and then
I'll consult with an expert and see if I can get that done.
I was gonna ask you after the meeting, but since you brought it up, I was like, well,
Okay.
I would like to, if I could, give Dr. Such a compliment, because although I think we can figure that out. You may not have noticed that when he did the school comparisons, he gave each school its school colors.
I didn't notice.
Have you noticed that? No. But we will work on that because it makes sense. Yes,
That made me
we
happy.
were working on the color code, very.
Yeah.
Very much.
Nice work.
Thank you for the birthday, and let's go to the website, we're gonna send an email out, when the next email to the town, to say this is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything we post on the website, we could probably be getting them posted after the community meetings that give a nice summary and put things in context for folks that couldn't make the meeting.
Okay,
We'll probably put the link that goes and sit on the fourth Saturday's meeting, because we think people here tonight, they hear a lot of, we refer to the Saturday, but if we're here Saturday, right? We want to make sure that they get all of these presentations in simple place with them up on the website.
When I looked on Facebook a half an hour ago, there were 2 people on, including me, so hoping at some point people start reading the information, but.
Right, and yeah, I agree. We have, we'll see what, presenting again tomorrow in the advisory. But it came up last year, so from Tommy to get saved. I wish I knew more about this. And we did have the same amount of meetings, and results, but not everyone is in tune to the meeting schedule that we have, understandably. So what we're going to do this year to help inform people, because we're excited about this. This is really good information and positive information. It's something that you saw with some of those that you shared tonight. We're doing a really good job collectively, all of us, the whole town. What we're providing our students. So what we'll do this year is create a more comprehensive packet at town meeting, so that folks, even lay people that don't know all these acronyms we use in education, will be able to read that, and clearly see the graphs and things like that that are here. So that'll be our last chance, but our last opportunity to make sure that everybody will have a clear and concise understanding of what the budget reflects in simple terms and where it's coming from.
Okay, any final comments? Thank you again for a great presentation. I guess on behalf of all of us, I'm grateful for all your hard work and as Phil has mentioned many times, all the department chairs, everyone who's here with us again tonight on a Monday. We appreciate you and all that you do for our children. Thanks so much. And I guess I will take a motion to adjourn. We are okay. Sorry, we'll call vote.
Only a second.
Oh, give me a second.
Second.
Oh, never mind. Never mind. I did too. All right, Orkowski. Yes. Vaughn. Bates.
Yeah.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
Brandolini, yes. I know.